Welcome to Multifamily Insights. I'm your host, John Kasman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. Listen, if you're enjoying this show, do me a quick favor and leave us that rating and review. I want to hear what you love about the show, but also let's get some honest feedback and hear anything we can do to make it work harder for your investing goals. And if this is your first time listening, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss another episode. We've got a great show today. We're going to be talking to James Prendamano. James Prendamano has a career that has included over 1,500 deals. He's leased more than 1 million square feet of commercial space, and he has created more than $1 billion in transactional real estate. Now, during this time, James has shepherded the completion of transformative projects through discipline and subscribing to a lifelong learner mindset. James' expertise runs the real estate gamut. Let's welcome to the show, James Prendamano.
Thanks so much, John. Great to be here. Good to see you again.
Absolutely, James. I went over your bio at a very, very high level. Why don't you take 2 minutes and fill in some of those gaps?
Sure. So started as a real estate agent, and we currently have PreReal. That's the parent brand that we operate, kind of the family of companies underneath. Worked our way through having never done any deals in real estate. I've been around it. Mom was a pioneer, did some of the first big commercial deals out here on the island and beyond. So being around it my whole life, it was just a natural transition, something for me to get in. And, started doing your $120,000, $130,000 house deals. And, over time, for me, it's always been about trying to find the way to scale and get more efficient and grow. In real estate, it's this amazing opportunity because there's really no cap. But real estate agents and brokers, I think, have kind of this like masochistic view of themselves, and there's this negative connotation, and oftentimes well earned, that surrounds the realtor community, if you will. But it's an amazing thing because there's no cap. You're not trading time for money. You're really, the limits are what you can move through the pipeline. So it becomes a focus on how do you scale that pipeline. And then I wanted to transition and not have to. The downside is start over every year, right? You could build a pipeline, but every year there's not that consistent revenue. So for me, almost from day one, it was, how do I get on the other side of the table? How do I get on the investment side, on the equity side, and start building a portfolio so that you're not starting from zero? I took a trip, John, many years ago. It was like my dream trip to one of these fly fishing ranches in Montana. Way above my pay grade at the time. It was one of those, reach goal kind of things that I did. And I had the ability to sit with folks at dinner every night. And part of the experience was they forced you to sit with different people every time you had dinner. And that's how you make the connections. And that's how it was done. And I was young at the time and I didn't quite understand that. But so one of the gentlemen I sat with had talked to me about mailbox money, and again, wasn't being brash or arrogant, was explaining to me that he would be able to come on this trip for a month, 2 months, 3 months. It wouldn't matter because he had built a portfolio, and every month those checks came in. And for me, that was the moment, if you will, where I really started to be intentional about making a transition and ensuring that while the mothership was able to grow, the brokerage, because that's where it all funnels through, I wanted to make darn sure that I was going to build a system that would allow me to scale on the investment side as well.
I appreciate you sharing that context of like your development and path. And let's dig in a little bit more there, right? So you talked about being kind of around real estate. Your mom was kind of a player in the, in the early scene of Staten Island development. From there, you started like most people with smaller residential, houses, and then ultimately decided to grow this brokerage and then realized, we really need passive income, or as you called it, mailbox money, coming from that retreat you went to out there in Montana, and you started to move more in that direction. Give me a sense of like the timeline here. And I don't need the years necessarily, but like, from the time you started your brokerage, how long was it until you realized, we really need to start getting some equity in these deals. I want to be on the other side of the table, and I want to start building up this passive income.
So I realized it quickly. but I didn't act on it. If I'm being honest, for me, there was a wall I had built, and I struggled mightily with confidence. If you put me in my subject matter, real estate from day one, it just was in my DNA. I knew it. I understood it. I was proficient at it. And in the deal, as a deal maker, I stood out from day one. But I struggled with, the most important 8 inches in the world are the two between your ears. And I struggled mightily in that department. So it wasn't until years, a decade later, through the podcast and through a coach, where they called me out, and we had done a show, and after the show, the coach had said, "Okay, that was a great podcast, but you're full of shit. Like, what's really going on?" And I was like, "Excuse me, here I am, Mr. Dealmaker," and man, he cut right to it, and it was life changing. I had fallen into a pattern of living a life for someone else. It was someone else's vision. It wasn't mine. It wasn't my path. It wasn't my passion. And I just didn't have the confidence to step out. And once I started to work on that piece, that was it. And I think for so many people that are looking to take that step, that is where you have to start. If you're not right in mindset, it is not most things. It's everything. It's the control, man. Like, that's where it started and stopped for me. So it took far longer than it should have, in theory. But once I got that right, it was a pretty quick process.
But James, it sounds like you were doing well at that time. It wasn't like the stories where, you hit rock bottom and you had to do something different. You got fired from your job. And, so it sounds like you were doing well and you're on your path. And if it weren't for this coach really calling you out and cutting through it to realize, hey, you're not fulfilled, you're not doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing, you wouldn't have kind of transitioned down this journey. For that listener who knows, that's part of the reason they're listening to the show, right? Is to scale and figure out how do they continue to get more out of life, more time, more freedom, more time with their family, more experiences. We're listening to shows like this to help us get that breakthrough. What would you say to that person who's maybe in a similar spot where life is good, they got a good job, things are fine, but maybe not as fulfilled as they should be?
Well, is it fine? For me, it appeared to be fine. I was making good money. I was, in the local periodicals. I was winning award after award, but I was miserable. I was utterly tormented. And I thought I hit it well. And I thought that my team didn't suffer for it, but they did. So I think you've got to be honest with yourself. What is fine? Rock bottom looks very different for a lot of people. For me, while financially I was blessed, there was a moment where, we got together with this coach and we pulled my executive team together in a room. And this was kind of like the first rap session where we were going to just be honest and talk about what was happening. And I had a room full of hysterical people. I was devastated. I didn't see it. I didn't know it. I felt it somewhere that something was off, but I was on a warpath. I worked so hard at what I was doing that I was, if folks want a leader, right? Folks want to be around leadership. They want to get to the promised land. And for me, it was, well, I'll pick up the sword and I'll lead the charge. I always do. But when I got to the end of the battle and I looked around, my team was battered, bruised, bleeding out. It was devastating to them. So from an emotional perspective, I hit rock bottom. That was one of the worst moments for me, to see these people who I cared about so deeply, so devastated. So you've got to be honest with yourself. You have to really ask, is this the life that you want to be living? Are you being called for something else? Because when you are, can't hide from it. You feel it, you see it, you smell it, you sense it. You can't put your finger on it, but it's there. And if you're a personality like mine, and like I think probably most of your listeners, it'll eat at you, bro. it will eat at you, and it will manifest in many, many ways that you don't even realize. I had done so much damage with the kids and the home life, and I'd sacrificed and rationalized. Well, look, we have this and we did that. I'm not a materialistic guy at all, but I was providing a life that I felt, because I didn't have the confidence, was far above what I could have or should have. So it's okay if I'm working Christmas Eve till 6 o'clock. It's okay if I'm not there for Easter. It's okay if I'm in the office till 2 o'clock, 6 days a week, and I'm there at 6 o'clock in the morning. And it's
And
not.
James, did you put those same expectations on your team?
Oh yeah. I didn't realize I did. To me, John, it was okay. We're going to get together and talk. What are we going to do this year? What are the goals? Okay, we're going to do this, this, and this. Great, let's go. And as a leader, you're supposed to take stock. You're supposed to talk to the team and explain the sacrifices that will be required. You're supposed to explain what's about to happen. You're not supposed to just get up and charge out the door, right? And for me, it was, wow, you hear the complaints along the way, but it's like, hey, you guys wanted this, right? You wanted to be the number one brokerage. You wanted to sell $100 million center. This is what it takes, man. Yeah, without a doubt. It was tough, and it was rock bottom for me mentally, emotionally. And you don't have to do it that way. There's just a much better way to do this. And that's been, the last several years for us.
James, thanks for sharing that. And I think it's really helpful for people to understand kind of the transition you were going through and that realization. Before we move forward to that better path, let's rewind and go back. You mentioned your coach kind of forced you to, or helped you go through this process, and getting this feedback from your executive team really was that moment where you realized that, you've been doing this wrong. Walk me just into that experience. I mean, was this a session where they sat down together and kind of called out, what they thought of you as a leader? But just give us a little bit more context of like what actually happened when you had this aha moment of your leadership style.
Sure. So as I began down the journey of coaching, which again, prior to that, I knew better, and there's no need for coaching. It was a common theme of, we have these initiatives, and it's frustrating for me because the team is not responding. Things are not getting done the way I think they should. So this particular coach is a big believer in the Pro-D assessment. So the whole team did Pro-D assessments, and it was the meeting for us to get together, kind of put up on the whiteboard where we had our most strengths and where we had our pinch points and our weaknesses, and how were we going to fill them. That was the context of the meeting. It became very clear after the fact that the intent was the coach. Then, of course, I had them start coaching my team, and they were getting the feedback, and they understood, we need to bring this together in a room, and he needs to hear this directly, because it was clear I deeply cared for the team. It's just, you don't know what you don't know, and I didn't know. So it was set up to be a review of our Pro-Ds, but it was for them to just be honest and tell me what was really happening and what I've really done. And man, it was tough. It was tough.
That sounds tough. And I would say, as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking about my experiences both as an entrepreneur, but also working for smaller entrepreneur shops. And this story is very familiar. It's very familiar. And I love, when you talk about, hey, we're going to battle, grab your sword, let's go. And I'm just swinging. And then I look around after war is over, like, oh, wait, you got cut? I'm sorry, what happened? And I mean, those are the experiences I think entrepreneurs kind of expect. And we expect everyone to be tough like us and to sacrifice and to charge towards the goal. And we don't recognize that it's not quite the same for everyone that's involved. So for you to come to that realization, I think is helpful. There are entrepreneurs listening to this, and you don't even have to be an entrepreneur, any leader, right? If you're in a corporate organization and you're a leader, people are going to follow you. But for those leaders who maybe aren't taking as much feedback or assessment of their team and how their team is, reacting to this, what kind of advice or feedback would you give them to stop and kind of take note and to maybe just check the pulse of what's really going on in their organization or within their teams?
So I think as entrepreneurs, we know when something is off. We do. We rationalize, and on my side of the table in sales, it's hunt, hunt, hunt. And it's very easy to fall into that mindset of, well, this is what's most important. But when you know it's off, take the time, pull the team together, start. I mean, look, we have all the tools available today, John. Like there are so many podcasts, so many books, so many videos, whatever is your preferred method of digesting information. There's no longer an excuse for why you're not taking the time to become a better leader. That's where it starts and stops. Evaluate honestly who you are as a leader. John Maxwell has been a big influence. A lot of his books, I think the first one I had done was 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And there's a whole waterfall of them after that, right? That's where it starts. And you got to be honest with yourself in that assessment. When you're out there and you're doing it, you come up with all the reasons why it's okay that things are the way they are, especially if you're having some measure of financial success. But it's really hard to pull it back and look at what's really going on. And that's it, man. If the leader isn't leading effectively, efficiently, the whole team is off. You can't have a healthy baby with a sick womb. And it was sick. And I was 100% the cause, not 99, 100%.
I love the accountability too, right? Recognizing that, hey, this is your issue as the leader. You had to figure out a way to fix it, which you ultimately did. We talked about that transition as well, going from focusing really just on the brokerage side to being on the passive income side, getting that equity for yourself. Walk me through kind of how this transition allowed you to be an investor, to go find opportunities in the marketplace to create passive income for yourself.
Sure. So the real estate has always served as a great way on a lead gen, basis for deals. But I started like most people do. You save money and you start buying deals and you get on the other side of it. I think similar to your journey, where I didn't realize that there was a whole world out there of syndications. I felt, and my fear was, well, if you don't have the money, you're not valuable. And I came to learn it's literally the opposite. The money is available. The deal is what matters. The experience is what matters. If you can execute and you've got a deal that works, believe me, you're going to find the money. You just have to have the right mindset, the courage, and the system to go out and do that. So, it's a several year process that you go through, and you take these incremental steps, and 1 unit becomes 2, and 2 unit becomes 5, and 5 becomes a development project, and on and on and on. But it was only when I accepted that I was worth it and I deserved to be there. And it was not only had I earned my seat, it was a privilege for others to be in a deal with me because my deals are that good. We don't execute on them unless they're just dynamite deals. Then it clicked. Then I started to understand, and it became a lot easier for me to make the asks, if you will, to have those discussions. And through investors who I had made a lot of money for over the years, that's where it started. You start taking smaller pieces of deals, and then you work your way up to a 50-50 and beyond. And it just kind of grew from there, from really an organic kind of way of really truly hand-to-hand combat. And then I started to take all of the elements of the technology and things that we were implementing on the brokerage side, and I brought that into the investment side. And then it was true scale, true efficiency. And that's where we are now.
I think there are a couple of really important insights to take away. So one, you're already in the space as a broker. So if you're a real estate agent or a real estate professional, transitioning to the other side of the table is a very natural transition. You're already looking at deals. You're already in the market. You're already building connections. So just finding a way to get more equity, it's a very natural transition. So focus on those things. The second piece is, you didn't necessarily have all the money yourself starting out. So leveraging the experience that you had, your ability to find a deal that puts you in a position to tap into those relationships, people you've helped, people you've made money with or for in the past, to come back to them and say, hey, I've got another opportunity. We want to run this deal, but will you partner with us on it? And that's going to give you a lot of leverage and the ability to build strong relationships and not necessarily be solely reliable for every single aspect. Yes, you're operating the deal, but you're not necessarily bringing 100% of the capital. So anyone who has that knowledge or has that expertise, it puts you in a great position to go out there and grow. And you may need to, align yourself with people who can help you navigate kind of the blind spots, but it is a great way for you to scale and grow your portfolio. Just for context, where are you at today? Talk to us a little bit about the brokerage, the kind of deals you're doing as an investor, the overall portfolio.
Sure. The brokerage, we're super proud. We just were named the top 10 growing firm for 2023 in the country, actually, for PreReal. So,
wow.
We recognized pretty early on that it wasn't enough to be a great deal maker anymore. You needed to be a marketer and a digital marketer at that. So we kind of bifurcated the company and we said, let's bring in a CMO and have them run the marketing side, lead gen, placements, all that stuff. And let's keep the deal maker where they're most comfortable and they're happiest, right? When you're doing what you enjoy, it's like the old adage, but it's so true. If you enjoy it, it's not work. And the game changed for brokers so fast that the best deal makers were likely the most seasoned deal makers. They did not grow up with an iPhone in their hand. They don't understand SEM and SEO and algorithms and all of the things that are required to get the property in the proper place at the proper time in front of the proper audience. So when we split that, things started to really sync for us. From the investment side, we're in a great place now. We've got a portfolio that includes everything from single family homes to motels. We're closing on our first golf course, a number of commercial retail centers and mixed use buildings. And we saw the market coming and we exited the asset classes as they were hitting their peaks. We saw when the manufacturing real estate was going to peak, and we talked about it on the show, and we advised, and we got out then. We got out, we feel, at the right time on the multifamily stuff. We got into the vacant land and the hospitality stuff at what I believe is pretty darn close to the bottom. We're not leveraged almost at all at this point because of what's next. We wanted to have a really healthy portfolio where we can go pull down debt now and clean up some of the mess that's going to roll out in the next 12 to 18 months. I think it's going to be a lean year and a half, but that's opportunity.
You are invested in quite a number of different asset types. You mentioned retail, manufacturing, hospitality, multifamily apartments, and residential stuff. So how do you go about analyzing and figuring out what the opportunity is when you're across so many different asset classes?
It started with the brokerage. It's just I had a thirst always for understanding why. For me, if you're going to do a deal, I remember early on in my career, I got my home improvement license because I wanted to understand when contractors were coming in on residential homes, what the bids would look like. And if there was an opportunity to flip, and I wanted to make sure that I got that. What is the process? How does the renovation play out? I got my expediter's license because I wanted to understand how to navigate the process at DOB. I started to take courses on how to analyze deals. And, when you're doing it as long as I've been doing it, I'm 47 now. I've been doing it full time for 25 years. I've had the benefit and pleasure of being involved in so many different types of transactions. The principles are all the same. The typology changes and the players change, but that's about it. The metrics are the metrics, and a cash on cash is a cash on cash. And, right. It's kind of the same lingo across the different classes. And I feel that when you're organized and you have the right approach and the right mindset, it doesn't matter if it's the waste industry, or if it's hospitality, it's the same principles. And if you bring those principles, the rest of the stuff, you have the right people around you to execute on that piece of it, and you can work your way through it.
I love that. And I think that just takes it back to, it's still real estate. It's a business. There are numbers you have to understand. Once you understand those numbers, understand the business plan or the opportunity, now you can go out there with the business plan. And the thing that's really cool about what you described is, because you're so close to, real estate as a whole, you're able to understand kind of the cycles, and you can kind of pick where we're going to go heavy. So maybe, there's a season to go heavier in hospitality. Maybe there's a season to go heavier in multifamily, but you're kind of reading and looking at, where's the energy right now? What's up? What's down? And you're able to invest with a different strategy than maybe many other investors based on that depth of knowledge and experience that you have. I know also the podcast has played a pretty big role in you being able just to grow and expand and build different relationships. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. The second most profound thing I've done in my professional career was start the podcast. First has to be the coaching, because that's what kind of opened up so many of the doors mentally. But the podcast for me was a lot of things. First, it was confirmation. As I would speak with multifamily experts and warehousing experts and vacant land experts and down the line, I was able to go toe to toe with the best of them. And I knew it. It's just, I grew up in it. I understood it. And for me, it was, yeah, okay, I can do this. It is an amazing community. There are so many folks out there that are willing to help, like not even willing, they're eager to help. The people want to play a part in growth. It's not the good old boys network, because it used to be very much a closed network, and you didn't have access to the institutional money. You didn't have any options. And I think this surgence of syndications and the digital world giving us the ability to connect so quickly with individuals you otherwise never would have the ability to connect with has opened up just so many doors that it became easier from that side of it. And the podcast played a huge role in that. I've made such amazing connections. I'm doing so many deals with folks that I've connected with through the show. And again, unbelievable community looking to help, eager to help. It's not the way it used to be. And that's a damn good thing.
Well, listen, if anyone wants to check that out, we'll make sure we link to the podcast in our show notes. It's a great show. I had the pleasure of being on there as well. And you have a ton of great guests. But the thing that's really cool is you cover different topics as well. You talk about, land and, buying vacant land and hospitality and so many other things. So it's really cool to understand those different aspects. And, particularly, I know you are, based in New York. You got a lot of great connections out there. So it's just fun to hear kind of what's going on and just the way you view things as well. Again, for folks who want to learn more about you, what is the best way for them to reach out?
Just the website, PreReal.com. I mean, it's got links and connections, and my cell phone number is on there, so I'm not hard to track down.
There you go. We'll make sure we link to that. We're going to move on to a round of insights. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. Give me a failure or an apparent failure that sets you up for later success.
Well, I think we talked quite a bit about it, but so I'll choose a different one. How about not keeping a wide open mind and digesting information at almost an obnoxious rate? I went from I've done it this way and it's worked to becoming a lifelong learner. That's a core value of the company now. It's a core principle for me, and it has had an amazing impact.
Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
So many of them. I don't want to give you the name, the specific names, because there's different benefits, but I will say having a dynamite CRM. You have to absolutely be in contact and unlocking this amazing knowledge that most of us have. People want to know And the CRM is the tool for us that allows us to stay in touch, stay connected, and deliver quality information to our investors and our partners and our clients.
Give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
Depends on who, but the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership is a great one. Ninja Selling is a great one. Eat That Frog is another great one. An oldie but a goodie, of course. The Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, is a good one. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I think, is an absolute and utter essential. I think it depends on the audience, but there's a few great ones that we've hit recently in book club.
Love them. All good books to add to your list this season. There you go. All right. Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
Every morning, first thing I do is wake up and I print out my sheets. So I have all of my tasks are consolidated in a program called Smart Sheets, wonderful program. And every day, first thing I do is I print them out. I get the day kind of set. I have a little routine where I get my head in the right space. And I do that every day without fail. My sheets are printed. I reconcile them every night. And that has kept me intentional. Like, you can't miss this way. I'm old school, so I like to cross things out at the end of the day. But for me, this really works.
All right. You are, we've talked about, your different investing strategy styles. So we'll keep this kind of broad. But give me your number one insight to be a successful real estate investor.
Number one insight to be a successful real estate investor. Okay. You're likely never going to see a pro forma that doesn't look good. Find what's wrong. Find the pinch points. Make sure the team is experienced, has been there before, understands the markets and the cycles coming. Eyes wide open, I guess is the way I could sum that up.
All right, let's lighten the mood, man. You're in New York, so I'll let you pick anywhere in the metro area, but give me your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
Danino's. Amazing pizza. I'm a pizza guy, and I know it seems like a simple answer, but if you've had Danino's pizza, you'd understand. It's legendary, man. It's a great place to have just amazing New York pizza.
I love it, man. We'll make sure we put that here on the list. James, I love the information you gave and sharing your journey on, being in real estate, growing up in the industry, launching kind of a successful brokerage, but then also realizing that as an entrepreneur, as a leader, you were kind of failing your team and you needed to make some changes and adjustments. Doing that also led to you being able to grow as an investor and building your own portfolio as well. And just giving us great insights on kind of that transition and what it takes to be successful, but also be mindful of our impact on the people around us, because that's just important. If you are going to see success, if you want to scale your business, you're going to need people, and you have to invest in those people in a way that allows them to thrive as well. James, again, if anybody wants to connect with you, we'll make sure we link to your PreReal estate information in our website there. So please check that out. And James, I just want to thank you again for taking some time to come on the Multifamily Insight Show. We look forward to staying connected with you and talking again soon.
My absolute pleasure, John. Thanks.